Hello everyone, this is Lisa with Old Orchid Yarnery, and I'm here today to show you our September knit block for our block party that we're doing this year. September we're going to be doing this knit block, which is a half and half square. Now this is based on a free pattern called the Half and Half Triangles Wrap by Purl Soho. It's a shawl pattern. I've made it, it's a lot of fun to make, and so I thought it would be fun to adapt it to one of our squares. Now, if you recall, you'll see this is got a diagonal line going up the middle. If you recall, a couple of months ago, we did this square, which was the mitered square. So this is similar, except if you did the mitered square, you'll know that you cast on however many stitches you needed for the whole thing, and then you worked it this way by doing a decrease in the center until you got up to the top. This one is worked a little differently. We're going to work one square of color, or one triangle of color at a time, and then we'll add on the other triangle. Now you might be thinking, I don't like picking up stitches. You're not going to have to pick up stitches. We're going to be using what's called German short rows. That's going to be the big technique we're going to be learning this month. If you already know it, you'll get a chance to practice it a little bit. And so with German short rows, we're going to knit across and then come back and stop short before the end of the row and go back. And so we'll be knitting fewer and fewer stitches on the first triangle, and then we'll be knitting the second triangle. You'll just see as it comes together. It's really fun to see how it comes together. So let me demonstrate it for you. I am using the same size 8 knitting needles and Swainyo DK weight yarn that I've been using all along. In this sample, I cast on 35 stitches. I'm going to say 40. It's a little small. I've blocked it. It's a little small, so if I did another one, I would cast on 40 instead of 35. What you can do, if you did the mitered square, is you can count how many stitches are on one side and then make the determination how many you want to cast on. This particular pattern does not need any certain number of cast on stitches. It doesn't need to be an even number or an odd number. It can be any number at all. So let's go ahead and get started. So for your pattern, you're going to cast on 35 or 40 or whatever you decide. And then the pattern says to knit to the end of the row. So I've done that. For our example here, I've cast on 15 stitches and I've knit to the end of the row. So now I'm on row 2 of the pattern, and this is the wrong side, and we're going to knit to the last 2 stitches. We're going to leave 2 stitches on the needle. So let me see if I can get myself set up here. As usual, these knitting needles are a little long. They bang the end of the table here. So bear with me. So we're just going to knit all the way down to the end. Now there's different ways to do short rows. There's something called, maybe you've heard of a wrap and turn short row. There's Japanese short rows. There's German short rows. Essentially what happens is when you stop before you get to the end of the row and you turn around, go the other way, then you're creating the potential for a hole right there where you've stopped. And so all of these methods are a way to try to mitigate that and get rid of that hole. All right, so now I've knit to the last 2 stitches. And so now I'm going to turn and I'm going to do a German short row. I'm going to show you continental first, and then I'll show you English style on the next one. So I've turned my work. There's the 2 stitches here that I did not knit yet. My yarn is in front because I was knitting and I've turned. So what I'm going to do for a German short row is I'm going to slip this stitch from the left needle to the right needle. And now, being careful not to lose the stitches on my left needle, I'm going to take this yarn, get this here so you can see it better. So I've slipped this stitch over from my left needle to my right needle. And now the yarn is still in the front, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to pull it up over the top and give it a little tug. And you see how that turned that into what looks like 2 stitches? Well, it's really only 1. It's just that 1 stitch that I've pulled out of shape. If I look at the back side, you can see that that's where I've pulled it. So I'm going to slip the stitch from my left needle to my right needle. I'm going to pull the yarn up over on the top, and now it's at the back of the work and I'm ready to knit again. So we need to place a marker here. And now we're just going to knit to the end. This whole pattern is really just a 2-row repeat. On 1 row, you're stopping before you get to the end, doing your German short row, and then the other row you're just knitting to the end. So I'm going to knit down to the end, All right, so now we're going to turn and we're going to knit to that marker. Remember the first time we knit to 2 stitches before the end, but now we're going to knit to this marker. Again, it looks like there's 4 stitches before the end there now, but you can see that it makes a little V on this side. That's my German short row stitch. This is what it looks like on this side. On the other side, it might look more like 2 stitches, but on this side, you can kind of tell it's more of a V. Okay, so now we're going to knit to the marker. So I will show you English this time. I think you're really going to like this. It's a lot of fun seeing just seeing the magic of the German short row and what happens, especially when you add in that second color. The square ends up looking like you've knit with both colors, like you did, you know, the mitered square like we did before, but you cast on half one color and half the other. But that's not how it's constructed at all. Okay, so I'm going to knit to the marker. You only need 1 marker for this. You're going to be taking it out and putting it back in a lot of times. All right, so I'm at my marker right here. And so now the pattern tells me to remove my marker, turn, do a German short row. So again, here's my yarn in the front. I'm going to move that yarn from the left to the right. And now I'm going to pull this up and over and pull it tight so that I can then knit back the other direction. Now I'm going to replace my marker and I'm going to knit to the end of the row. Again, that yarn is in back. Give it a little tug if you need to. And we'll just knit down to the end. Now that's really it. It just is going to take a little bit of practice. I'll show you a couple more times. German short rows can sound kind of intimidating, but they're really not. And I prefer them to the traditional wrap and turn method. With the wrap and turn method, you have to try to find that wrap later and resolve it. And I'll show you what we're going to do for this. Resolving German short rows is really easy. You just knit that short row stitch that's pulled up and over. You just knit it as 1 stitch. There's no trying to find the wrap or anything like that, which is what you have to do with wrap and turns. Okay, so we're at the end. So now we're going to turn our work and we're going to knit to the marker again. That's all we're doing. One side we're knitting to the marker, then you turn, make a German short row, knit to the end of the needle. So now we're just going to knit to the marker. All right, almost there. So now I'm at the marker, so I'm just going to take that marker off. I'm going to turn. I'm going to slip that stitch from the left to the right needle. This is the German short row. And I'm going to give that yarn a tug on the back, pull it tight, and now I'm going to put my marker back in. And I'm going to knit to the end of the row. All right, I'm going to do that a few more times, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've been continuing along. You can see my triangle forming here. And the pattern tells you to keep going until you've wrapped all but the last 2 stitches. So I've got 4 here, so we're just going to do it a couple more times together. So we're going to, and it's the same every time. We're going to knit to the marker. As you can see, my marker's traveled. It started way down here and now it's all the way up here. So we're going to knit to the marker. And you may end up saying this to yourself as you're going. Remove the marker, turn, slip stitch from left to right, pull, replace the marker, knit to the end. Now some people don't use a marker there because they find it to be awkward to keep putting the marker in and out. Remember, I just have a short number of stitches here. You're going to have quite a few more stitches than this, so you're not going to be pulling it out and putting it back as often. But also, I just prefer it. I think it's better than trying to remember to look for those stitches. So We're almost done here now. So I turned, I'm going to knit to the marker. Remember, it's the same every time. Knit to the marker. Remove the marker, turn, slip the stitch from the left to the right, pull on it, replace the marker, and knit to the end. So we're now at the point in the pattern where it says to do repeat rows 4 and 5 until you've wrapped every stitch except the last 2, ending with row 5. That's what we've done. These are all of our German short rows. Here's our marker. Here's the last 2 that we did not knit yet. All right, so the next row, we're going to knit 2, going to remove the marker, then we're going to do a German short row. So we're doing it again, but this is the last one. So remember, German short row means we turn, slip the stitch from the left to the right, pull on it. This is where you especially don't want to lose that stitch off the left needle. So be careful and hold on to it. Pull on it. Replace the marker. And now we're going to knit 1. And that's the one we have left. Okay, so next row, we're going to knit 1, which is the only one we have here. We're going to set ourselves up for adding in our second color. Here's our first triangle. This is going to be the center diagonal line going down the middle. So this is the last row of color A. We're going to knit 1, take that marker out. We're going to knit our German short row double stitch as 1 stitch, and we're going to repeat that all the way across. So you see how there are little pairs? If I were to pull this apart, you can see how it looks like pairs of stitches all along the needle. That's that stitch that we pulled up and over the top. On this side it looks kind of like a V. So you pull it apart, and we're going to knit each one of those as if it's 1 stitch. So we're just going to, it's almost going to feel like a knit 2 together, but it's not 2 stitches. And we're just going to do that all the way across. So this is called resolving the German short rows. Knit all the way across, just knitting those 2 together. I'll switch over to English for a minute. Again, it's just knitting that pair of stitches together as 1, then resolves that German short row. Now we're going to have 2 that are not doubled at the end, because that's how we started. We're just going to knit those 2 like normal. So we're knitting all these pairs of stitches, our German short row double stitches, as if it's 1 stitch. And here I've got 1 German short row stitch left, and then my 2 singles at the end. Just going to keep going. So I'm going to knit that German short row stitch together as 1, and now knit these 2 at the end, just like normal, and then we cut color A. Here's our first triangle, all done. All right, let me cut color A and we'll add color B. Okay, we're getting ready to add color B. Now for triangle 1, we did those German short rows and our marker just moved all the way across our needle. And then we didn't resolve them all until the very end, and we resolved them all at once on 1 row. The second triangle is going to be done a little differently. We're going to do 1 German short row at a time and resolve it as we go across the row. Because remember, here we were getting larger, and now we're going to be getting smaller going down to the other point. So we're going to go ahead and attach color B, and we're going to knit to the end of the row. So just like normal. The way I attach a new color is I go ahead and I insert my needle into the stitch, make my new yarn into a loop over my needle, and just pull it through. Now remember, when you're attaching a new color, you've got all this loosey-goosey stuff going on with the prior color and the new color. Don't worry about it. Just knit, and we can resolve that in a few minutes. So we're going to knit to the end of the row, And I know that my work is a little loose right here. But I'm going to get a few stitches in and then I'm going to tighten it up. Just get away from the edge so that my yarn is secure in the row. All right, so now that I'm partway through my row, my yarn is secure, I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, and I'm going to get my tail of my new yarn. Oh, it's kind of a short tail. And my tail of my old yarn. I'm going to give them a little tug to tighten that up. And then what I usually do, I know some people feel strongly about no knots, but I usually will tie a knot. Even just one time like that, just to keep it secure. I've not tied it a double, so it's easy to get out if I need to. But you see now it's a little more tight and tidy over here at the end. So now I don't have to feel like I'm losing anything. All right, I'm going to continue to just knit to the end. We're adding in our second color. This is the most exciting part of this one, I think. Seeing the second color added and see that diagonal line across the middle form with the two colors. Pretty fun. Okay, so we're on row 2. Nope, we're on row 1 of triangle 2 with color B knit to the end of the row. So that's what we just did. Now we're gonna turn, go the wrong side. We're gonna knit to the end of the row again. So we've got 2 just knit rows in the middle here to establish our second color. And then we're gonna start our German short rows. And I'll show you what that looks like. They're done the exact same way. It's just that we're going to do one and resolve one on each row rather than resolving them all at the end. We'll resolve them one at a time as our piece gets smaller and smaller. Remember, a short row is simply just stopping short before the end of the row, turning around, going back the other way. There's just a lot of different ways to do it. Okay, so that was row 2 of triangle 2, knit to the end of the row. You can see this is the wrong side. The right side looks a lot neater. Okay, so here we go, row 3. This is where the fun begins. So we're going to knit 2, do a German short row, place a marker, and turn. So I'm going to knit 2, do a German short row. So I'm going to turn my work, slip a stitch from the left to the right needle. Careful because there's only one there. Give it a good pull. Place the marker. And now knit 1 and turn. There we go. All right, so row 5, we're back on the right side again. You can put a marker on your right side if you want to. Now that we've added the second color, it's also easy to see. This join here looks nice on the right side. On the wrong side, you can see the purl bumps. Looks a little messy. So row 5, right side. We're going to knit 1. Knit 1. Then we're going to remove the marker. We're going to knit that double stitch. There it is, the one we just made the last row, as 1. And then we're going to knit 1 more, and we're going to turn. And now we're going to do a German short row. So we're going to slip that stitch from the left to the right needle, the one we just knit. Give it a good tug. Place a marker and knit to the end of the row. I know this looks a little awkward, especially with my long needles and whatnot, but really you kind of get into the groove. Okay, so that was row 6. All right, nope. Yeah, that was row 6. So now 7, we're going to knit to the marker, and this is what we're going to repeat all the way through. The rest of this triangle is going to be just like this. We're going to knit to the marker. We're going to take the marker off. We're going to knit that German short row double stitch right there as 1 stitch. We're going to knit 1 more. We're going to turn. We're going to do the German short row by slipping it from the left to the right. Pull it tight. put in the marker, knit to the end. Do that a couple more times and then I'll stop the video and meet you at the end. All right, so on the right side of the work, we're always going to knit to the marker. You can kind of see how we've started to turn a corner right here already. So we're going to knit to the marker. Going to remove the marker. Going to knit that German short row double stitch right there as one. Then we're going to knit one more. Turn. Do a German short row by slipping that stitch we just knit from the left to the right needle, giving a tug to make that double stitch. Put the marker back on and knit to the end. You're going to repeat that over and over and over again until the end. So I'll be back in a few minutes and show you how that looks. Okay, so as you can see here, I've continued and I'm built the other side of my triangle with the longer and longer rows, doing that German short row here. And now I am at, it says repeat rows 6 and 7 until you have 2 stitches left without a German short row, which I did, and then repeat row 6. So it was on the wrong side. I made a German short row and I knit to the end of the row. So now the next row is on the right side. We're going to knit to the marker. This is just how we're going to finish this off. So we'll knit to the marker, remove the marker, and the stitch right after the marker. Okay, so we're going to knit to the marker. We're going to remove the marker, and the stitch right after the marker is that last German short row. So you'll see. So here's my marker. I'm going to go ahead and take it out. We're done with that. And now I have this German short row double stitch. I'm going to knit it with its wrap, with its partner there. And I'm going to knit one more. Oh, actually knit 2 more to get to the end. And now, with the wrong side facing me, so I turn, and here's my wrong side. Remember, if I don't have a marker telling me, I can tell because I can see these purl bumps along the joining edge. That's my wrong side. And so with the wrong side facing me, I'm going to bind off knitwise. And it's just going to be a normal bind off, nothing special. So we'll knit one, knit a second one, pass the first one over. We don't have to do any kind of special bind off here. We don't need any additional stretch or anything like that. This is a garter stitch square essentially, so it's going to stretch and block out quite a lot. Keep that in mind. So use your mitered square that you did a couple months ago for a guide as to how many stitches you might want to do for the size. It'd be just however many stitches were on one side of that mitered square. I did my first sample here with 35 stitches, decided it's a little small. I would probably do it with 40 if I were going to do it again. So I'm just binding off as I'm going across, and then I'm going to show you what the square looks like. My little tiny sample here. What's fun is that if you've got several different colors you're using in your blanket, you could make several of these squares in different color combinations. It also would be really fun to make a whole blanket out of a bunch of these little squares that are half and half, or just to do a giant blanket or a shawl with one big square. All right, let me break this yarn here, and then we'll pull that through, and I'll show you my half and half triangle. All right, so there's the wrong side. Here's the right side. Now, as you can see, it looks a little misshapen. Blocking will fix that, and you will end up with what is mostly a square. It might still look a little wonky, so here's my finished one. You can see this edge over here looks a little wonky. That's probably from where I put the pins, actually, when I blocked it. But again, because it's garter, it stretches quite a bit. You don't want to stretch it within an inch of its life to block it, but you do want to get it nice and stretched out. So here we have our 2 halves of the triangle. This really nice join down the middle. It looks kind of decorative. And there's your wrong side, you can tell because of the purl bumps. So that's a half and half triangle. Have fun. As always, if you have any questions or problems, please let me know. You can email me or come in the shop anytime I'm open. I'm always happy to help. Thank you.